there you have it. RX-7 is in the shop. So this is a project. It's going to be kind of a big project, and it's been a long time coming. So I actually bought this car about 4 years ago. Well, it's early.
But you know it's gonna be a good day, because we got a car hauler back there.
The last time I saw this car, same color, different front end. Wow! It's in really good shape, actually.
I mean, it's good shape-ish. So Dad did already point out, like, over here there's some Bondo, but I think I'm getting new fenders anyway, so whatever.
Oh, wow. Do the pop-ups actually pop up?
They do. I was so surprised.
So this is the original paint.
Well, someone's done something on this. Like, it's those lines, like that's not original. The guy said whenever he got it, the clear coat was fine and started like fading in the year he had it, but I don't know. That's pretty bad. It's been doing something for a while.
Oh yeah, this brings back memories of being a child and getting nauseous and throwing up in the tiny back seat.
Yeah. So these back seats, they make perfect buckets for throw up when you're back there and you throw up.
When it's August in Texas and 100 degrees and you're a small child back there with limited air conditioning, you get sick fast. Wow, it's in like, the dash isn't cracked.
So that's like the whole reason I got this one. I was looking for one with a good interior because like the dash, they're hard to get these days. Oh God. Ew. That one's tasty.
How is the corrosion happening here and
not on the terminals?
Like, did it punch a hole? I'm surprised it started. Huh? 13B.
13B.
Got some little winkles in there. That's where all the little winkles come from.
Yeah, there's some weird things like the alternator's maxed out here and this belt like isn't even tight.
Do you think it's even the right belt?
Probably not. And the guy who told me, he was like, at least a little bit of oil, you won't even notice it. Like, at least a significant amount of oil. 4 years ago. It's been a long time. So my first car when I turned 16 was a 1987 Mazda RX-7, just like this one. Same color, same trim, pretty much same everything. It was a red exterior, gray interior, just like this one. 2+2, so we've got the back seats back there. And my RX-7 unfortunately met its maker one day when it met an F250. So I drove that for like 2.5 years and it got wrecked right before I went to college. And so the plan for this car is to make it better than the one that I had. So RX-7s do have the rotary engine. And so this is a 13B naturally aspirated rotary engine. So even though the hood has the scoop on it like you'd have on the turbo RX-7, this is not the turbo. This is the slow one, but we're gonna change that. So the reason I've never worked on this car is because whenever I bought it, we had the Certerra, the Nissan Xterra, in my garage, and I told myself we had to finish that and get it out of the garage before I could start on this. And then I started assembling all these parts that you see in the trunk here, getting everything I needed to work on the RX-7, and then we unexpectedly moved. So the RX-7 does run and drive, it just doesn't run and drive well. It drove itself here to the new house. It has an idle issue. Supposedly the guy that sold it to me, he said he replaced the idle air controller, still doesn't idle really well. And it also makes some weird noises. He said the throwout bearing was going out in the clutch and it's got kind of a screech noise. There's another kind of weird grinding noise, I don't know where it's coming from. But apart from that, most everything on here works. Even the air conditioning works, which is it's kind of a shame. We're gonna have to tear that apart. And so the reason we're tearing the RX-7 apart is this right here. So this is a LS3 V8 out of a 2010 Camaro SS. Should be good for 430 horsepower. And we're gonna be upgrading the RX-7 from its 130 horsepower rotary engine to this thing right here with 6-speed manual transmission. I know a lot of people are gonna be like, oh, save the rotary, that sort of thing. Thing is, I told you before that I drove this car, I had this car. It was slow back in 1999. It's probably even more slow today. So putting an LS in this car is not due. There's a lot of people who have done it before. There's a whole website dedicated to it called norotors.com. People post their build stories out there. And so there's aftermarket support for it too. So some of the stuff in this trunk, which we're about to get into in a minute, there's companies out there that will make engine mount kits and transmission kits for mounting an LS in your RX-7. Well, the problem is I kind of bought the wrong transmission, but we'll get into that in a minute. So the main reason I bought this car was the interior condition. So everything in here is pretty complete. I mean, like the seats and stuff are ripped, but we're gonna get everything reupholstered anyway, so I'm not too worried about that. Just the fact that the seats are here is good. The back seat, so that was a big selling point for me back when my first child was like 6 months old. I think that's when I bought this. I was like, oh, I want like a 4-seat sports car I can take the entire family in. And after your kids get a little bit older and you realize they scream all the time, you just want a 2-seat sports car again. But we've got the 4-seat, so we're gonna go with that. And that's actually another problem, is I kind of bought the wrong car to do all this. So I mentioned I found a car exactly like the one I had, but because I had the low horsepower engine, I had like all the bad accessories. So we've got 4-lug wheels here. We're gonna need to upgrade to 5-lug hubs to have better wheel options and also to handle more power. The differential is an open differential, so we're gonna need to put a limited slip in there to handle all the power we're putting in it. The axles probably need to be changed, and I'm sure I'm forgetting other things, but that's everything I can remember, because I started doing research on this car like 4 years ago, and it's been a minute. So we're gonna take this thing for a drive. We're gonna see what I have in the trunk, because I think this is almost everything you need to put a V8 in an RX-7, which kind of seems silly, right? There's not much here, but we'll see in a second. So getting in here, like I said, almost everything is complete. The window cranks all work, which I'll probably try and upgrade those to electric later. But the door handles, the locking mechanisms, everything is all here. There are some cracked trim pieces, but I've already actually bought some to replace those. The only things that I know don't work are, you can see the steering column is off here. That's actually in the trunk, but the clock spring, the thing that lets you press the horn buttons whenever the steering wheel turns, apparently that was broken, and every time you turn the steering wheel either all the way to the right or all the way to the left, the horn would just go off. So I've got a new clock spring too, so we can replace that. And actually the guy who did that, who disconnected it, he put it in a COVID mask, so that's the horn button right there, I guess, so it wouldn't short something out. But I bought this car like right as the masks were going into effect, so there's a good chance this car is just full of COVID. And then there's the noises. So this thing will start pretty easy. Here it's idling high. When it gets back to the lower idle, it tends to die. Just like that. Although the air conditioner's on and it's blowing cold. The light's not on, but it's cold. If you flip the throttle, it'll stay on. It just doesn't like to idle. You also have to change gears really fast. So the exhaust is a little loud because there is none. Apparently the guy who had this car before, he said he put on a really nice exhaust. He took the car to dinner, and when he came back, it was gone. Maybe it happened, maybe he just took it off before he sold it to me, I don't know. So we're flooring it. I mean, it picks up, but it's no 430 horsepower V8. And the car just turned off again as we tried to come to a stop. There's no check engine lights though, it just turns off. We just turned off again doing like 30. Transmission is a little squirrely, but that's going away, so we don't have to worry about that. We just turned off again. Maybe the car just knows things, like it knew we were back, so it just turned itself off right here. So that brings us to what's gonna happen to this engine, I guess, which I've offered it to Alan. He's thinking about putting it into Austin Healey, but when he sees how many times it just turned off in 5 minutes, I don't know if he's really gonna want it or not. Mr. Nobody has expressed some interest, but we'll see what happens to it. I don't think it's going in the trash, I think it's going somewhere. But let's take a look at what it's gonna take to put a V8 in an RX-7, or at least what I planned it was gonna take like 4 years ago. So this is a wiring harness for that engine. The computer came with the engine, so we already have that. The plan is to take the computer, take this harness, it gets rid of all the stuff you don't need, and then you just plug it all together and it goes. It's probably not gonna work out like that, but that's the idea anyway. This is the steering column, the COVID-infested one that I mentioned. This is a piece of plastic, don't know where that goes. This is a fuel filter and other various fuel fittings. So apparently the way this works is the fuel line in the RX-7 is smaller than the one you would find on the Camaro that the engine came with, but apparently it's enough that you can get by. So these are adapters to adapt the fuel line in the RX-7 to the fuel inlet on the engine, and it should theoretically work. Worst case, we can upgrade all the fuel line, and we can do that if we need to. We have brake pads. I think I was getting way ahead of myself thinking this thing was just gonna like run and go. So they're here somewhere. I just found my flashlight I've been looking for forever. The batteries still work after 4 years. So these are wheel hubs for the Turbo RX-7, and I think there's rotors around somewhere for them too. But like I mentioned, those are 5 lug. We're gonna be upgrading from the 4 lug. Oh, this is a new fuel pump. So a high flow fuel pump that will go in the RX-7's tank. We'll use the same tank, just new fuel pressure, more better pressure. I lied, this is fuel line. I guess we're replacing the entire RX-7's fuel system, so there's that. So this right here, this is actually my favorite feature of the RX-7 that a lot of people don't know about, and it's a shame we're gonna have to get rid of it. But what this is called a flash to pass lens. It goes right up here. You can see this one broke out. There should be one on both sides, and what happens is, because this has flip up headlights, if you're in the fast lane and someone in front of you is going slow, what you can do is you can flash the brights with the headlights down, and they will shine through these lenses, so the person in front of you will then see that you're flashing them to pass, and will very nicely get over into the slow lane and allow you to pass. Works every time. These are rotors. They feel like rotors. I'm gonna guess they're rotors. I'm not taking them out of the box. Oh yeah, there you go. They're brake rotors. This is one of those interior pieces that was cracked. Don't really need that to convert to a V8, but we got it anyway. This box is, I don't know. Oh, so this is the engine mount. So I mentioned there's a company out there, I forget the name of it. Oh, there you go, Ronin Speedworks. It's called Ronin Speedworks, and this is a engine mount and transmission mount kit to put an LS3 in the RX-7, but also a T56 Magnum transmission, which is not what we have. We have, I think it's called TR6060, something like that. It is a transmission that is specific to the Camaro engine that is attached to right now, and so the bolt holes are not going to line up for the engine. I already know that, or sorry, for the transmission. The engine should mount up. Transmission, probably not going to mount up because the mounts are in the wrong spot, but hopefully my plan is we can just cut it, move it, weld it back in, should be good to go. This is the battery box. I had to change the battery. This is another interior trim part. Oh, this is for the mirrors. This guy was all just cracked right here. So they actually make some company, I forget the name of it. I'll link to it in the description. They make metal ones. You can replace them with metal ones. So we'll paint those, put them in when it gets to interior time. So there's going to be phases of this build. So first phase is going to be getting the V8 in. Second phase is probably going to be suspension and body work, because this car is, you can see the paint and everything has not seen its best day, but there is a plan to take care of that. This hood, actually, the hood was in pretty good condition, but I took it off, decorated it, put it in my son's room. Got this guy with the scoop, because hey, it's got a scoop. But the plan is there is a wide body kit out there. I believe it's the Greddy Pandem wide body kit. I saw one online one day. I was like, hey, what car is that? It looks really good. And it was my first car. It just had a wide body kit on it. So we're going to be wide bodying this car. I think the front bumper goes, the front fenders go, the doors and roof stay. You put over fenders on the rear, and the rear bumper goes. So a lot of this car is going to be new body. So all this doesn't matter. We have to repaint everything anyways. This is the clock spring for the steering wheel. So it's off of another car. Hopefully it works. We'll see. It's been sitting in the trunk for 4 years. And this is the box of stuff the car came, well, not this. This is another interior piece, mostly. But this is the oil the guy was putting in the fuel to make sure the engine didn't seize up. Roll of duct tape to make sure your car stays on the road. And then other random radio things. Speaking of the radio, so yeah, the interior is getting all redone. I mentioned it's all there, it's complete, but you can see like this right here is cracked. I've been trying to look for a new one of those, or I looked for one 4 years ago, couldn't find one. But worst case, it's plastic. We can plastic weld it back together, paint it, something like that. So that is pretty much all the parts I had, which doesn't really seem like a lot, right? So maybe this is gonna be easy. There's a few things I know I'm missing. So the radiator is going to have to be replaced. The V8 needs a bigger radiator. I also gonna need a C6 Corvette air bridge. And so the way that works is like the intake for the V8 comes out like right here. The air bridge goes over this support right here, comes down there, and that's where your air filter goes. I think the radiator I don't know where it goes. But my plan was to get the engine in there, make sure everything was gonna fit, and then get the radiator and a few more parts. And from what I remember, removing this engine actually isn't too bad. You can actually unbolt everything and lower the engine down onto the ground, raise the car up above it, and you can put the V8 in the same way, have the V8 on the ground, lower the car over it. It has that much room in there. But I believe all this stuff over here, like all this electrical stuff, this all comes out. There's the ignition coils, fuse box, or maybe those are the coils, I don't know. All of this is gonna come out, clear the engine comes out. There's gonna be a lot of labeling and a lot of pictures as we get this taken apart, and hopefully everything should go back together pretty good. Yeah, so the plan is get the V8 in there, get it running, get this thing moving under its own power, which I think we're gonna have to do the differential and everything at the same time. It's gonna take a little bit. Suspension, body work, interior, painting somewhere in there. And then we're also, we're gonna have to make room for those. No, I'm just kidding, those are for another project. Although, I had the idea, like once we get this thing rolling and going, like what if we get another RX-7 and make it an off-road RX-7? I don't know. So the next RX-7 video you see may not be the next video in time, but the next RX-7 video you see, engine will come out, new engine, we'll attempt to put it in, we'll see how far we get, and we'll go from there. So until next time, I've got a bit of relearning everything that I was planning to do this, how to do it, that sort of stuff. But I'm really happy to get my flashlight back. See you later.